Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh.
And Patty XRP.
Today, we got a special guest coming to us that Patty and I are going to have a nice discussion with regarding NFTs on the XRP ledger and what this means for the future development of the XRP ledger and the community and what is in store ahead. So we're going to dive into some details of what the XLS-20d standard is that's coming to the XRP ledger.
Awesome. Yeah, so we have Yoke with us. He's very active on Twitter within the XRPL NFT community and the dev community. Most recently, I believe you're on Matt Hamilton's Twitch show to do some stuff regarding the new standard coming out and the testnet. So Yoke, welcome to the show. And to start off, love to just allow you to give a little introduction, what's gotten you into NFTs and, the XRP ledger community.
Hey, so glad to be here, Mickey and Patty. What started me on NFTs probably around 2010 is I was like aware of Bitcoin, and I was like very aware of like the inequities that would happen. Like prior to this, I had like built my own computer with spare parts, and I was able to like pretty much run any like service or play any video or like stuff that I basically thought like I was able to do anything on the web. But then Bitcoin came out, and I realized pretty quickly like I didn't have a computer that could run all night. I didn't have a computer that could like mine stuff faster than anybody else. So for me, it was like pretty clear that like this whole idea of incentives was like kind of biased. And being a student of arts, I was like putting crypto on the side, but I was very interested in the like digital scarcity aspect. So around 2010, 2011, I was going to college, and my focus was fine arts, and I always knew a lot about computers. I've been playing with computers since as long as I can remember. I think age 7 is like when I started using computers. I think age 10 is like when I wrote my first script. But I was very interested in art, digital scarcity. I think as an introvert growing up, I was like buying a lot of, as an introvert growing up, I was downloading a lot of anime. I was downloading a lot of scene releases, a lot of wares. And there was always this like aspect of like, can you get the better pre-times or like 0 days of like, a movie or a can or a telescene that came out. So it was a different aspect of like a rare digital item where you had to have access to get it. Like think about what.cd or Waffles or Oink, these like private torrent trackers maybe you're familiar with. But that was sort of the stuff I was like really interested in, like trying to connect cohesively digital media and what we saw, and like that led me down into generative art, and I built my like college career through generative art. I showed my work global, like throughout the world. In 2012, I was like part of the Glitch Festival, and one of the aspects of that was I wrote this backend called Open Repo, which was a open source version of Artbase, which came out in 1999 from Rhizome. But Artbase was like basically you had to have this like basically a pedigree. You had to be invited, or you had to like pay, or you had to have a residency to even have access to like post into the Artbase. So Open Repo is trying to like open that up a little bit. And one of the aspects of Open Repo is just like technically kind of cohesively brought the metadata and the asset itself together in this like one immutable store that was federatable. Like there was open endpoints, is using CouchDB. But at the time there was, Color Coins wasn't even out. But in 2012, I guess the XRP ledger had the DEX. At that time, I didn't know about it. A friend of mine who I talked a lot through high school and middle school, like we I used Linux in high school, and like this was like my only friend who also used Linux, but he was big into crypto, and he was aware of like OpenCoin at the time. I think if you like a few months into 2012, I was talking to him or something, and they were talking. He was mentioning OpenCoin, but I didn't think of anything about it. So fast forward a few years, I graduated school in 2014. I'm a broke art student, and so I had to like find some work to feed myself, and I fell backwards into like full stack development. It was like luckily a place where like my first job out of college as a full stack engineer was with the Noun project, which was sort of like this idea, like extending this idea of like the image and metadata. So if you're not familiar with the Noun project, it's like an icon marketplace where designers upload their design like icons, and then they can be paid if people decide to like use it without the attribution. And it's like a opt-in pay, but it was an interesting idea. The founders were talking about how to create a visual language. But what's interesting to me is like, how do you scale serving a bunch of assets? And like, I learned a lot doing like working with them. And then I inevitably joined another team who were two of the like technical leads under Obama's 08 campaign under Harper Reid. They created a company called LLC. I was like, so this is around 2014, 2015, but they were basically consulting on cloud computing. And I mean, essentially all the heuristics that I know about highly scalable systems was through working with them. And it was pretty lucrative. They were like one of the first people doing horizontal scaling. So they were getting big jobs like WWE, HBO, Major League Baseball, Harvard. So I was like working with pretty big clients, and I was just like their first hire. And it was a very interesting experience. And I learned a lot about building systems. But at the end of the day, I was like still kind of depressed because I wasn't making any work. So that ended up like me getting burnt out and me trying new roles and careers. And I ended up getting into a place that was doing money remittance, because I was thinking like fintech. I'm going to think about fintech. And I know crypto is the future, but let me learn about some of these banking systems. So I ended up at a fintech called Pangea Money Transfer. And it was kind of insane how much we ripped off customers. And I don't give a shit about that company. But the reason I mention it is like, think about the mission statement or like whatever that Ripple wants to solve as remittances. And like, prior to joining Pangea, I didn't know anything about XRP still or Ripple, even though it's like I knew about OpenCoin, didn't think much about it. But I quickly saw like the friction of sending any money abroad. Is like we went through so many middlemen, and inevitably like our customer base was like migrant workers who would send money home, like $20 to feed their family for a few weeks, which is huge. It's a huge amount of dollars to send to Mexico. And what was frustrating for me is like, even though the code was, working and the services wouldn't go down, I was like basically running a 24/7, 365 bank by myself as their like head DevOps person. They didn't do anything correct in cloud until I came on. But even with all the uptime, like we were still beholden to Swift, and like things would get lost in their system. So no matter how good we were, we would always inevitably screw up some customer's payment for some reason. And when you have a customer sending $20 that they can't send again because it got lost, it was really disheartening and really fucked me up. And was like, all right, let's try to look at crypto. Maybe it was in my head, like, let's think about how crypto could solve any of this. And obviously that company had no interest in doing that. They made 50 cents on the $5 they charged. So it was like kind of ridiculous how much like money that was getting, extracted from this. And if you think of like banks today, you could pretty much send a wire for free if you have a good account. So it's definitely like taking advantage of a certain group of people who don't have bank accounts. And it really did mean a lot. Like the whole idea of like the underbanked or non-banked people, that really drew me into like furthering and like my interest in like what crypto companies are like doing stuff that are solving actual issues. And I landed on Ripple, I think, after getting burnt out at Pangea and leaving that company, from a friend who like just mentioned the coin to me, and I was like doing research. Oh, this is open coin, and oh, this solves every issue we had with holdings, all these different currencies in different countries that we remit to. You could have one currency that could auto bridge, and I think it was really exciting. I was like really interested in. I applied to like work, at Ripple, and I actually got an on-site interview, but it was for a role that wasn't for me. I just wanted to get my foot in the door, and I ended up bringing like two Tom White. I guess prints, called Hot Dog. It's basically called Not Hot Dog, but Tom White is this artist who makes, basically they're called GANs, and a general adversarial network. So if you think about image recognition, you can try to like train a model on images that like what's all these pictures are cats, and then you throw in a couple dogs, and then you try to like train it that this is a cat, this is a cat, this is not a cat, and basically you can keep training until these source data like you don't have enough. But again, will let you try to like fool the model by providing like random input that can essentially make it a you get interesting results in the other end. So like what Tom White did was like, if in the instance of Not Hot Dog, it's to think of the Silicon Alley show, it was
I had this literally was just thinking that.
Well, it was around that time, but basically the GAN was like a hot dog that didn't look like a hot dog, or it would come if you open the Not Hot Dog app, it would say it's not a hot dog, but it looked like a hot dog. It's kind of interesting. So Tom White like plays with that, and I brought those over there because I had the intention of like talking to them about because Internet of Value is one of their things, and in my head that was art. That's like digital art, and it was like reverb. It's like rejuvenation of like these ideas I was having, and in college with Glitch Festival, and trying to like figure out a way to use like technology to better provide provenance, and like because there was no reason why we couldn't provide provenance and payments if we were to use blockchain. So I interviewed there, and I talked to a few people about like I think at the time I was just calling it digital art on the chain or whatever. I wasn't aware of like anything in Ethereum because I didn't pay attention to it. But I guess like OpenSea had opened at that time, and like I was aware of crypto punks because that was like one of the first NFT projects, not the first, but essentially I went there and like tried to let's try and get this in there. And like one of the things I was met with is like, yeah, you can issue a single indivisible asset today, and like basically what the Wheatset proposed. But I don't know, it felt like I was laughed about it, and I find out like I think I was talking to Nick, he was interested in it, Nick Bugalis, he was an interview, but I think ultimately it was like they were trying to ask me to, or the result I got was like, well, anybody could propose anything for the ledger if you can write the code. So I was like basically left with, okay, if I want this on the ledger, I have to figure out how to write the C++ code. It was a little bit disheartening, but I felt like still that, and this is inevitable, but I think, 2021 is when we finally saw someone take the initiative to like bring up like NFTs on the ledger. And I think this is all because of, the surge of NFTs over the last year. But yeah, that was a long-winded way to get to where we are today and who I am.
Absolutely. I mean, I enjoyed it. I've been, following you on Twitter for quite a bit. And you're always talking about NFTs. So I think it's interesting how you had that fintech aspect as well as like, an art background and kind of having those come together now on the XRP ledger. So to move on into the kind of the next thing would be, so we started with in early 2021, Weezy Win from XRPL Labs. He put out the XLS-20d. Basically, standard proposal is like a base level using what the ledger currently has to make NFTs. And then there's been some iterations on top of that to where, the Ripple X team with Bugalis, David Schwartz, and all of them came up with this XLS-20d NFT standard for the XRPL. So I'd kind of love to, hear your thoughts on how it's evolved over the course of the past year to getting to this point. And then also, what is it about the XLS-20d standard that's going to be really great for NFTs on the XRP ledger?
Yeah, so like the XLS-20d standard is I would say is a hack, but it's a useful hack that got us to talk about it and like look at it. But essentially, what it proposes is takes the smallest unit of unit for an issued asset, and it's like basically it's how many it's precision. So how many zeros can we put on a number? And it turns out it's like one. I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but 1 minus 1 times 10 to the negative 96. So it's like negative 97 zeros. Essentially, it's like, so if you issue, 0.000, et cetera, 96 times 1 of an issued asset, this was the proposal that so that token, that issuance, would be an NFT. So that was the idea. Ultimately, that got people seeing like, yeah, this is possible, and people were doing stuff with it as an interest. I quickly like minted something on mainnet using that JSON that he had, and I ended up like creating something that I can't actually remove from my wallet. I think I screwed up the way I issued it, but it's just been regardless, it was just to mention that like it's not an easy experience. So we got, after XLS-14, we were starting to talk about, okay, we actually need to attach metadata to this, but not necessarily the metadata. We actually really need to attach a URL to this. Because if you look at ERC 721, the only thing that thing stipulates is like a URL and a description. That's, I think, the only things that are part of the meta on that. And then the typical what function calls at minimum it should implement. So XLS-16 was it was a first proposed by an intern at XRPL Labs, and what it was a way to attach memo data to the transaction that would describe that mint. So you would have like a URI and then a secondary URI and a description and like all the didactic info. And didactic info is like the little plate you see next to a picture on a museum. That's what you call like that little card. Mm-hmm. So like XLS-16 was trying to be the didactic info, and it added the ability to represent a URI attached to an NFT. Although it used memos, and memos aren't technically required for the like advancement of ledger. So essentially what that means is like the ledger is state changed. So every new closed ledger has the full history of all the ledgers before. It's because of it makes forward progress by changing state. And when we have a state change, we don't necessarily need to know about the memo. So that is something that could be, expelled over time. So it's not necessarily going to be there forever, is the idea. That a memo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the memos, basically like, let's say if I wanted to send XRP somewhere and I wanted to remember what the transaction is, like maybe I'm saying, hey, this is going to BitTrue or something. it would just be an optional field I put in, correct?
Yeah, memo can be attached to any transaction. So you can attach a memo to an offer you make, just like if you wanted to do that. It's not like exposed in any UX per se, because it's not really, nobody's really necessarily attaching memos to trades,
Gotcha.
but it's really an open-ended like ability to attach any data to any. I think it's a kilobyte of data you can attach to it, and you can have more than one memo, and each of those memos has a body, a content type, and I think even there's one other like meta about it, but I think it's content type, a body, and then a header, I guess. But anyway, you don't have to use all of it. It's just very flexible. So you could see like Chai Money or Chai Spend, which is by Uchi, who's also a Coil developer advocate. But Chai Money, sorry, like what was I saying there? It's like Chai Money is using, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's all good. No worries. You can come back to it if you remember. But yeah, if you want to move on from, you're talking about XLS-16, and then
the memo field. Sorry,
yeah.
Chai Money uses the memo field to like add some like transaction data on the, so he can see on the back end and then verify it with the ledger that's immutable, can't be changed. But like if I as a user publish something as a memo to an immutable ledger, I can at least verify that they created that memo and that transaction is theirs. And then, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, that was my last thought there.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So going on. So after XLS-16, how many more iterations did we see before we got to 20?
Oh yeah, we had 16, we had 19, which was by Calx, another XRPL developer, independent XRPL developer. But essentially what XLS-20d would do is take the wallet and make that the NFT, so account-based. And then again, I would say overloading fields, but they're arbitrary in the sense that they take any's data, but there's already like a ton of applications that assume that the address, like the hack in this one is that the XLS-19 will be transferred through a it's not remote signer, but it's like the secondary signer you can add, and then you can transfer ownership by removing the master key and then giving that over. But essentially it's account based instead of a token based. So if you think about locking up 10 XRP per NFT, and then you're managing accounts, it's still it's not a token. It's LARPing as LARPing as a singly issued asset. It's LARPing as a non-fungible token. It's LARPing as a token. It's not a token. We had a few others like 21 and 18 are not necessarily, I think, 18 or 21 it utilizes a new serialization format, but I think that was possibly like part of what XLS-20 now does. But let's talk about XLS-20. If I think we talked about 15. Sorry, we talked about 16 and 19. What if I'm missing one?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. I am kind of curious specific to like 20. Like, what do you think as, me and Mickey are pretty normal users of the XRP ledger. Like, what is important for, people like us to know in the community that, comes with the XLS-20 and all that stuff?
What is important to know that is it's a token. It's an actual token, like something you hold in a wallet, and it's a new object. Everything on the XRP ledger is an object in the sense that when you create a transaction, you create a transaction object. When you create a offer, you create an offer object. And some of these are long-lived and they require XRP to be reserved to hold that. So like an offer or a trust line or an account. These are objects that require data storage, and you lock up XRP to hold it on the ledger. With XLS-20, there's a new mechanism created by by the talented folks behind the standard, Nick, David, and not Uncle, butchering her name, but all of them creating this. Is that like the actual token doesn't take 2 XRP per. It uses a new, basically repartitioning, reallocating, so there's no empty holes, where it can hold 32 per page. It's a NFT token page. So I like to think about it like a page in a binder that holds collectible cards. Essentially, that these pages are what encompasses like 32 NFTs. And if you have 33, you have 2 pages, and it holds 4 XRP to reserve that. But
is it 4 XRP per page or 2 per page?
2 per page. But if
Okay.
you had 1 over 32, you need a whole new page. Is what I'm trying to communicate there.
Also, I mean, I think that's pretty solid that they got it to where you could have, normally with the issued assets, you'd see like 2 XRP per issued asset. So, I mean, if you can have 32 different NFTs for just that 2 XRP reserve, I'd say that's pretty solid right there.
Absolutely.
So out of all the amendments that have been passed, like in the past for the XRP ledger, from one thing I remember reading from the blog was that this is one of the most comprehensive changes and additions with the new objects to the ledger. So we're going to post in the description below. We have the blog and also the XRPL.org page that has been added recently. So if anyone's looking for more information on the XLS-20d, so is this going to be a Yoke? Is this going to be an amendment that's going to need to be passed by the validators?
Oh, absolutely. And like one of the other bigger things that I should mention about XLS-20 is like there's from the onset is that royalties were part of the standard and part of the conversation since XLS-14. But yeah, to your question, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah. So when do you think that this amendment, now this doesn't have to be an amendment, right? So it's going to make changes to the actual APR, the XRP ledger. That's why I just want the community to kind of know what's going on here with this standard. Like this is different than, say, side chains, right? Which is to be implemented separately. This is actually making changes to the ledger, right?
Yeah, same with the minor changes that enabling side chains would require. It's like it's not necessarily as deep, but this is a new object. This is a new data storage format. There hasn't been a new object since, I guess, checks were created over 3 years ago or 2 years ago. But it's like, and checks don't even come close to like the amount of options you have now with this new asset, basically. But if you think about like this 12-year-old code base adding an entirely new asset, just like it seems pretty awesome that it's happening in less than a year. I think that itself is an accomplishment. But once it's all merged, there's going to be a vote to approve or deny ratification of that amendment. And like once it's in code, it doesn't get turned on until the amendment is passed. But there's other benefits to the code that will, I think, provide upstream benefits to other parts of the ledger, like the way trust lines and other objects are stored potentially can take advantage of the new storage mechanism that the NFT storage is using. So like repartitioning on the fly, optimizing, storage overall. So that versus side chains is the reason I think that like a big change like this would be happening before sidechain would be enabled.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I think another thing with this that I'm pretty curious about is, a lot of different blockchains at this point have like EVM capability and, kind of go with those ERC 721 and 1155 NFT standards. Obviously, NFTs blowing up on Ethereum, whether it be like CryptoKitties, Punks, some of the other ones that have kind of emerged over the past couple of years. What's kind of the differences between, the ERC standards and what the XLS standard is trying to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the XLS-20 is most like 755, 751. You see, sorry, 721. And 1155, just so people are aware, is a combination of ERC 20 and 750 or 721. So essentially, what 1155 allows you to do is like batch NFTs together and like create batch offers. If you're not like writing a smart contract to, basically create offers on a bunch of S721 tokens, like there's a project called Genie that will do that. But 1155, and let's just like look at 721 and ERC 20, because 1155 is just a hybrid of both of those. So CryptoPunks was originally an ERC 20 contract. Larva Labs came out with that before CryptoKitties became the standard. Even though I think CryptoKitties came out, Moonkitties came out before them, but CryptoKitties came out. Dapper Labs created the 721. It's essentially two fields, URI and a description. But so CryptoPunks was ERC 20. Since they had the ability to rewrite anything like every other contract, you can implement a standard or spec as long as you have those function calls. You can still write a bunch of other crap that goes on behind the scenes. So this is why like ERC 20 tokens still exist for NFTs. People will do that with 1155 or ERC 20 just to lower costs of gas. It's kind of insane. So you end up with an ERC 20 token or 1155, but it's not necessarily an ERC 21. When you talk about XLS 20, we're talking about just a single asset is unique across the board. You can't make it up. It's not a hybrid. It can't issue more than one. You can have taxons that relate to things. So like a collection might, will use a taxon to say that these are all the same, part of the same collection through provenance. And then, of course, the built-in royalties is a huge aspect. From the onset, this has been something at least I know I've been fighting for, and I'm very happy that it's in XLS 20, because no other, as far as I'm aware, there's no other chain that like from the onset has considered royalties. The Ethereum standards, there are a few marketplaces that are working on, I think it's like in the 2000 range. I don't know the exact numbers, but like Rarible, OpenSea, Super Rare are trying to create a way for just basically royalties across the board that's implemented. Because right now, even if you use OpenSea, there are royalties, but the backend contract that essentially you give permission to over the assets in your wallet that they can then you list and people will bid on. The royalties come out of their backend contract, which is another product that, basically when you send a payment in, they'll take 10% for the at a max for artists is 10% royalties, and then they get 4% or 2.5%, whatever they take, because this is backend contract takes their commission as well. Whereas on XLS 20, on the mint, it can't be changed, but once it's minted, the royalty stays the same, and it's tied to the issuer wallet. So anytime that's traded through NF token offers, that's the only way you can send anybody an offer. A token, is you have to have them accept it, or you mint it yourself, or basically nobody's going to airdrop dick pics to people, which is, I think, another benefit to the way this functionality works, and which is completely different than Ethereum and Tezos, where everything is like basically you can send anybody anything and they just have to accept it. There's no blocking. And let's not forget that we have multi-sig natively. You can rotate keys, Whereas like on Ethereum, if somebody finds out your secret key, you're fucked until you can pay everything to move all the NFTs out.
Yeah, so people could basically like spam your account more easily over on Ethereum with like expensive, NFTs that would cost a lot to move essentially.
Well,
versus
it gets even worse than that. So like a lot of people will send dick pics, but there's also like people who will send exploits as SVGs because OpenSea had bad core headers, and SVGs can link to other things. So people were exploiting cores on OpenSea where they would airdrop somebody an SVG, which would then phish them by loading some JavaScript that called their MetaMask, and then they would sign a transaction quote unquote unknowingly, because the UX sucks around MetaMask. And you don't really know, even if you're calling a mint function, that could be just a function called mint that essentially just takes all your money. Like the whole MetaMask UX, it's just so terrible. Whereas like, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, because I do use MetaMask fairly often, but yeah, that's something like on Ethereum, like anybody can send you anything and you don't have any say in it. And it's also like, people are like, I don't want this in my wallet. I don't know what it is. So I never really thought about that on the XRP ledger with like these issued assets. You do have to front a little XRP, but it does give you like that peace of mind locking it up, and it's always redeemable. That it kind of gives you account protection essentially.
Yeah, there's also like, I want to be clear, there's no trust lines, but there is implicit acceptance, or explicit acceptance rather. Like you have to accept a token being sent to you.
So yeah, how would that work? Like, let's say you just randomly send my account, an NFT in the future. Would I see that as something pending and then I would accept, or is there a time limit on that? Or
well, you would have to, well, to be honest, like you'd have to take it or mint it. So you'd have to ask for it, or I would have to sell it for 0, and then you would accept that 0. Like if I were just to transfer without paying, then this is a loophole in every marketplace that if you send something for 0, there's no royalties attached.
So what I see here is that it seems like they built in a much better marketplace to be able to sell and bid on these different NFTs than what, for example, we have on Ethereum, which is like OpenSea and Rarible. Those are like centralized entities trying to do something to facilitate these transactions between different people. Now, am I right, Yoke, when I say it's possible that people are going to be able to do this peer-to-peer in a much easier way, in a decentralized way?
Absolutely. I think the whole aspect of the XRP ledger is the DEX. Like every issued asset is interoperable by default. The same with NFTs, that every marketplace can, or user rather, or artist creator can create offers or sell their NFTs without a marketplace. And that's like something out of the get-go, like out of the box, people can start, as long as you mint something, and I'm sure there'll be, including myself, I'm making a mint app that anybody can use. Like as soon as you mint something, you could make an offer, to sell offer of that token, and anybody can pick that up and buy it. Or if you don't have a sell offer, people do like that, they can come in and create a buy offer, and then you can accept it or not.
So all these NFTs are going to be able to trade right on the XRP Ledger DEX right after you mint them. See,
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's one thing that I see as a huge advantage. And we've talked about the XRP Ledger DEX, how it's such a powerful component that was built into the XRP Ledger years ago and hasn't really seen its full capabilities expanded. And I see, Nick Bagalis and David Schwartz have talked about that the DEX, is so powerful. We're just going to now see it be used with these NFTs and other issued assets and side chains. So it's really exciting that a lot of people have already gotten familiar with using the Zum wallet, right? They're getting more familiar with using the DEX. I mean, compared to a year ago, it's nice to see the community come around to this. Just to add in one more question here, would Zum wallet be ideal use for people trading NFTs? Just so community.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Sun wallet, and I'm a big fan of Witsa and XRPL, like the whole team on XRPL Labs, and furthermore XRPLF, even though that's not all them. Like I just love those guys. The Sun wallet, I think, to your point, like We didn't have that. I mean, a year ago, people weren't using it on the DEX. There wasn't an X app for it, but there, or like at least people started with like the XRPL toolkit and like logging in with their SDK. And I think one of the aspects of that some is going to be prove beneficial to NFT users is the like push notifications for accepting offers. And I think that's going to be a big aspect. I could see people importing, you know, their Ledger device into some for that reason. I don't think like Ledger or other wallets will be left out, but I feel like if you want to use the best experience in my head is like only some wallet. So, and I'm a big fan of their, you know, it's all open source. If they started, you know, if for some reason they like lost everybody's trust, you know, let's fork their code and recreate it, but nobody's going to do that.
Yeah. So I actually have a specific like question on a user journey. So like currently right now, so I've been kind of dabbling with NFTs on Songbird Network that uses like ERC standards, and mainly because, you know, the gas fees are way cheaper. I have a couple on Ethereum and it costs me like $90 just to list them on OpenSea, which is insane. So I have to be really careful about what, like when I actually am willing to sell an NFT. So like right now, if I wanted to transact peer to peer with somebody, I would have to find a middleman until there's an actual NFT marketplace created to facilitate that. I'd either have to find a middleman or be able to trust the person enough that when I send them, let's say Songbird, they would give me the NFT back. So with this kind of offer system, would that essentially, like, let's say I offered you 50 XRP for an NFT you minted, could you just accept that and then it would, automatically swap them? Or is there any kind of other party needed for that to be facilitated?
Yeah, so there's this idea of a broker, but like I want to just talk about the first use case is like user to user without the middleman. Yeah, like once you create this buy offer for the 50, I can accept it or deny it. But I don't think I can, like, it's not going to go anywhere until you remove it. As long as I don't accept it, it's going to stay there. To your point about like sending Songbird to the user, I think if there was a UX, like there would probably be a contract call that you could like facilitate that payment through, and then you wouldn't have to necessarily trust that they do that. But to that end, I think that's like one of the reasons why XRP Ledger will inevitably be a better user experience. Is like there's less things that can happen, or like you're gonna make a few native transactions like NFT token offers, payment or whatever. You know exactly what you're doing when you sign that transaction, because you can't do some crazy stuff because it's not a contract call. So when you send something when you offer to buy something and you accept it, yeah, it's going to send you the XRP. They're going to get the NFT, and any royalties will go out to the minter. That can all be done through if you look at the NFT token tutorial that the XRPL org folks put up, a simple HTML page like that, or a bit of JavaScript with a sum app. I'm pretty sure, like, if the tools weren't like in XApp form or aren't in an easy to use web page by that time, people will make them. So the user experience in my head is like, as long as you can write the JSON, which includes like a few fields, you can do this stuff without any UX. I think that was a little bit off topic from your question, but
I guess just to go back, because I just want to make sure I get this right. So basically, so if I send you an offer for an NFT and you accept that offer, do I still have to trust that you're going to send it to me if we don't have some application that facilitates it, or will it just be sent to me?
Oh, just be sent. Like that's
okay, yeah. So that's perfect. I mean, that's a trustless P2P transfer through the DEX. I think that's outstanding. That's going to be possible.
That's the only way you can send something, by the way, is like token mints or through offers.
Awesome. That sounds really
so
cool.
they're going to go through the DEX. See, now this is nice that they're using, those capabilities there. So when you use the word offer, that means it's going through the DEX, right?
When we say DEX, we're necessarily talking about the NFT DEX, I guess, because it doesn't touch any of the tokens.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a DEX.
So say somebody wanted to pay with XRP for that NFT,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah. You can actually potentially pay with other assets. XRP can be a like you can require that this is paid with XRP, but that's like a field. So it necessarily means that you can make offers without XRP.
That's pretty cool because I think we're going to get to a point, Mickey, here when, especially when Flare gets going and it gets the F assets, there's some projects being built like Probity DAO that's going to build a trustless bridge over to the XRP ledger. In the future, you could see like BTC be trustlessly issued onto the XRP ledger, and you could now be facilitating, NFT buys and sells with Bitcoin as a token as well on top of XRP. So, and then in the future, when we have like a decentralized stable coin, which we don't have right now, since it's just, issued stable coins by Bitstamp and GateHub, I think that'll really open things up. So, you could start transacting these in dollars rather than ETH denominated, which I think could be a lot easier for people as well. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. And then to your other question about the middleman, the broker, my understanding has been skewed. So what I've been saying is like surfacing like what, the next thing somebody's going to buy, right? And then facilitating offers between that and the token. So like if you can imagine, if anybody can go off Ledger or off if anybody can go off a marketplace, and instead of going through them, they can like go make the vanilla offer themselves. They could just like bypass any marketplace. I think inevitably the UX is going to restrict people, and like the easier, if I can support the marketplace I like, and it's like easier to do it that way than going through this, like maybe in the future people just copy URL and then you can get any bypass any deal in a marketplace. But essentially what the broker does is that it'll sit between two, a buy on a sell offer, I guess, or vice versa. So I don't think they have to be on both sides. But so I've been going on the technical specs, and my understanding was like you're surfacing and creating offers for users, and then you're taking the cut if they do buy it or like the user does sell it. But it's not necessarily implemented all the way yet in DevNet. So there's more learning that I need to do. So there's two possibilities where brokers could potentially only sit between the spread of offers, which could be synthetic, like a user on the site who wants to list something might necessarily have to like list it through them, and then they would have a bigger offer that you would, they're only selling it for like higher than they actually want to sell it, and then the broker comes in and does it less. I don't know, not to complicate anything, but the idea of a broker is a little bit complex, and my understanding has been skewed, so I need to reevaluate that. But it essentially will be the ability to create offers with a commission, in the sense that the person that's connecting a buyer and seller together will get a commission in some way.
Oh, I mean, personally, I don't see anything wrong with marketplaces in general. They can make things a lot easier for you to look between tons of different NFTs or finding a buyer and a seller for sure. I just love the idea that we are going to be able to do this trustlessly P2P. Mickey, I want to see if you had any other more like technical related questions. Otherwise, I'd just love to hear about what Yoke's working on in the NFT space on the XRP ledger. So I'll just see if you have any last things here before we get in last topic.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much more in the technicals. We could revisit this in time, but I guess one other question I would have before we go on to that would be, I know people are starting to get exposed to these federated side chains that are coming out there, and now say we see in the future here a world where we have, say, EVM based side chains, and will there be ERC-721 NFTs on some of those? And how will that interoperate with this new XLS-20d standard? And what do you think the rough estimate of time to when we could see this standard possibly be up for a vote?
Yeah, absolutely. So like with sidechains, it's pretty open-ended. If so, the one thing I think is the caveat for sidechains is the ability to lock up, and then the door access and all that. But the ability to lock up assets other than XRP. So what Flare has done is, and they have a, an agent is what they call it, but it's a agent that sits on another chain and it routes transactions, or it's like trustlessly proving that it has, read these transactions, and it can also act as an agent that wraps up the F asset of XRP, and it utilizes the built-in escrow on the XRPL and collateralized debt on the other side, so that there's always like a tie there. With sidechains, you get the ability to potentially lock up any asset, so you're not strictly required to, collateralize against XRP. But then that on the other side, you can run your own Ripple D daemon, essentially because like you have to understand what transactions are coming in. But if you want to implement it within whatever way you want, that includes an EVM, that could happen. And if your sidechain does like that EVM lookup and all that stuff, sort of transparently to the user, that could also happen. So like I say it's open-ended because as long as the contract, or like whatever, like Flare contracts, if they want to route to a sidechain, they would have to get to the XRPL side and then send it to an X address, which is an R address with a tag, and that would end up inevitably be like whatever goes into that system, rules there. But it's all possible. I don't see why not. And what does that mean for certain things like on Flare? And like, yeah, I think you could see NFT projects sort of doing stuff like I would love to see somebody try to make an AMM within XRPL with the NFT standard, because once we have the NFT, you can start, like, I think about NFT vaults and NFTX specifically, which sort of is an AMN plus, essentially, like, if you're not aware of what NFTX does, it's like it has these collections that people can set up within, so they can become a liquidity provider, and they provide liquidity on one side, and then some NFTs they can eventually get out of it. But what the idea is, like, if you donate or input an NFT into the vault, you get a certain number of token. That's the liquidity. And then it's an interesting mechanic. But I could see that happening with issued assets in XRP, with just having the NFT and then automation on the back end. But
That's
then
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Any time frame we think we'll see this? I know that's a hard question to ask, but if you had any idea, you would have the guests for the community. So what we could be looking forward to?
Absolutely. I think I'm going to defer to what somebody else better or has more knowledge on futures than I do and more experience. They were thinking like February was going to be the DevNet release, so we're actually ahead of that. It seemed pretty. I mean, they thought mid-February, and we're like already, we're not even mid-January at least, and we already have the DevNet up, and that estimate included like Q2, Q3. So I think that's still on track. That's like Q2, Q3. I say there's going to be two to 3 months of like really hard testing on the DevNet, and I originally thought it would go to DevNet to testnet. It's not the case. It could go from DevNet to a release candidate as long as there's a merge that will happen. So like, let's hammer the hell out of the DevNet and like try, as hard to break it so we can get iterative stuff on that. So that will make it, come out faster in my head. But
nice, great to hear.
I think
things
next
are ahead
year.
of schedule.
I mean, it's not bad for a 12-year-old project to
No, not at
add
all.
a whole new feature. No, it's not bad at all.
No, I think people got to remember, like, we're going to see a ramp up here, and I keep saying this to the community, that things are happening here, and this 2022, I think, is going to be a big year for, the XRP ledger to really come into its own. There's these things, and like you said, 10-year-old basically blockchain, doing these things. I think it's going to make a big difference, and it's going to give the community so many more projects to be able to utilize, and so much more interaction that we haven't been used to, and we've really only scratched the surface with Zum this past year. But
Yeah.
exciting times ahead for sure.
Absolutely. So Yoke, I think with this last part of our conversation, I'd love to hear what you're working on with Clever Gallery, and then maybe if there's any interesting projects you've kind of seen in development you'd like to touch on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk about Clever Gallery. So Clever Gallery is my project that I think a few years ago I like came out with this, like I wanted to make a gallery called Clever Gallery. And in fact, I had that like notion before I went to the on-site with Ripple, and I had that site up. But my whole idea is like I wanted to run a gallery. And as an artist, it's like, you know, my hopefully retirement. But I started to see like a lot of problems with like NFTs, and like first and foremost, like I love seeing my friends getting paid. I love seeing friends that I knew from college like show their work in Times Square. I love all that. I don't like that, you know, they were spearphished and had all their money stolen, or because, you know, MetaMask is terrible. But so what Clever Gallery is my gallery, and I want to make a gallery about, you know, art, and like I want to have the avant-garde of like I want to have basically like the Guggenheim online, right? Like the idea that the Guggenheim would be online, and avant-garde, this idea that supports artists. I'm so obsessed with supporting artists that the like XRPL grants is where I got the money to start working on this, and that's a developer fund. So I was part of the first wave of recipients for XRPL grants, which, you know, happened in September. Like the actual grant came in September, so I've been waiting a bit for this. Even though we had a private sandbox, I didn't feel great about using it. It just felt weird that, you know, this open source project, and I understand now that like with the results we see in the DevNet, they wanted to make sure it was like a good, you know, solid release. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, I love what they released. So Clever Gallery is your gallery in your hands. So if you go to my.clevergallery, it's going to be looking at your wallet in this. It's basically an X app. You can display what you want to display. You can like reorganize stuff. But the other aspect of this is if you go to Clever Gallery, the front page is what I curate, and then everything else is an explorer of NFTs. So if you go to anybody's collection, or if you go to an artist collection, or if you go to a collect or a series, or if you look for cat or whatever, any of the views that you're seeing a piece that is tied to a payment pointer. So if you can collect money through web monetization, we'll be paying you. So the collector, the artist, the feature set at first launch is probably going to focus more on the artist or owner that have signed up. But the idea would be that as long as I can pay artists more money for people viewing the art, that was going to be a big value add to it. So if you think of Tumblr and how many, I don't know if you've used Tumblr in the past, but I miss Tumblr in the early days, or like 2010 area, I guess, or like where I would scroll through Tumblr for hours and people reblog stuff. But like imagine capturing all the time people spend on OpenSea and monetizing that for artists. I think you're going to see a lot of people I'd be happy to pay like the pennies that they're doing while they're surfing. So I'm optimistic that Clever Gallery is just going to be a API layer for artists and generative artists to display work, while myself, I'm building Clever Gallery in the way I'd like to see an NFT marketplace and gallery online. The reason I'm making a gallery is because I kind of hate the way that they work. Like think of a gallery, they take 50% of us, if you're lucky, of the artist sale. Most of the time they'll take 70%, and the artist gets 30%, and the gallery can go around and if they have it in their permanent collection, go sell it to the auction house, and then the artist is still screwed. But so what Clever Gallery is doing is just like artist focused endeavor as from a generative artist who's really obsessed with paying people to create and make a living off this.
Nice. So question, if I love that you're going to include Interledger with this. So like if I had a Coil subscription and I go to Clever Gallery to go view maybe some XRPL NFT artists that I like, I basically would be streaming them XRP micropayments like every second while I look at their art for however long I do it.
Yeah, with any currency that they want, with the way Interledger works, if they want to get dollars for that, they can get it, and you'll be paying XRP. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, we have that attached to our website and YouTube channel, so it's kind of cool. Like I'll get a notification every day. It's like it's not a lot that we get because not a lot of people use Coil yet, but it's a very cool process. Yeah.
Well, the bigger endeavor, if I had more, like it's just me on this team, and I want to stress that like a bigger aspect of this is like if I could run an MSB, I could be adding more money along the way. But the way currently the way you have to integrate with even Rafiki.money, you have to be an MSB, and this Rafiki.money is like the new open payments concept from Interledger. But I truly believe that the paying artists, like the instant settlement, that's a huge aspect. The like not limiting the amount of royalties. Like, we're going to talk about, like, I could go on for hours, and I know we're out of time here, but like artists paying other artists is going to be big. I think we've not seen that before. Artists getting paid, not net 90 from whatever. Like I think of Sedition, where I had a piece and they compromise digital stuff on the get-go. They require that everything must be a duplicate, multiples, and like you can't sell ones-to-ones. But like getting 50% of a $40 sales 90 days later, it's like $20. Like that's not helping anybody. So I'm really excited for what NFTs will unlock in creativity. Clever Gallery is working with a few partners like XRP Shrooms, Monkey, and Super Eagle. I'm also doing a lot of work with other artists that I'm bringing in from the Ethereum side that hate the ridiculous fees, and I'm excited to I'm working with this guy from the Warhol Museum, working with I'm working with this guy that's in Chicago, but he makes a lot of eggs, and basically I'm excited to start showing that we can bridge these assets, it's not actually bridge, it's a one way, because the value proposition for people with Matic is or any level 2 is if you're on level 1 Ethereum and you're selling something or moving, you're not going to buy something on Matic, but if you have an option to move it to level 2 or move it to XRPL, and it's the same cost, and once you get it over there, you don't have to trade a synthetic thing, and it's not really the real thing, it's a new thing. I think that's going to be a pretty big value add, and that's one of the aspects of Clever Gallery is I'm trying to create a bunch of nice to have stuff for artists, including info.art, where I'm making instead of a dry JSON schema for metadata, I'm going to allow artists to if you ever downloaded scene releases, you get the .info file, and they have really cool ASCII art in there. I'm going to allow that for artists, and I want to start seeing art.infos in everybody's releases. And I want to have people build Raspberry Pis that connect to the API that then show off their art, or create new displays for art, because Clever Gallery has the backing to it, or can provide the other half that will enable them. And just very excited.
Nice. I do have one question. Yeah. So as far as when you get Clever Gallery kind of up and running, is this going to be something that non-developer type people will be easily able to kind of set up their page to display stuff, or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Unless you requested to not show, everybody's going to be available to see their any work on the XRPL, as long as you can find it. But yeah, it's going to be, my whole focus is UX. I've been working under product managers for years, building whatever corporate stuff that they want. And I finally have the chance to build my own product. I'm very excited that I was granted this great opportunity with this grant. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think at this point we're going to go and wrap it up. I know we went way longer than we said we were going to when we talked before. That's pretty classic for us. Me and Mickey have a hard time with that.
That was some great discussion there, Yoke. Thank you for all the insights and your journey that you went down, getting to where we are now. And I concur with you. Exciting times ahead now, and I think it's important to know that these grants are coming out there. So if you're a dev or you're an artist, this is the opportunity. This is an open source, decentralized, public blockchain XRP ledger for everyone to build on. So it's definitely going to be exciting 2022 into 2023.
Yeah. Can I shill the Creators Fund, even though I'm not a participant in that? But
definitely.
That's another aspect that I think you could see other, taking that playbook. But we have a huge war chest from Ripple, not Ripple X, but it's a Creators Fund. Any artist, is to fund artists directly. Any agency that can represent artists or whatever, celebrities or whatever, and then studios that make work for commercial. Go look at that. Go check that out. It's a big war chest.
All right, awesome. Well,
yeah, the last thing, Patty, we're going to post those links below in the description. So if you are interested more in XLS-20d, check in the description below.
Yeah, and I'll link Yoke's Twitter account too if anybody's interested in following what he puts out about NFTs over time. So thanks so much for coming on, man.
If you want to sign up for the beta of Clever Gallery, you can just go to xrp.art.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you so much, Yoke.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. This is the DeFi Standard. I'm Patty XRP.
And I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
And we're out. See y'all.